Hey everyone, welcome to Studio Z. In today's video, I hope to try and make a basket weave draw front that looks something like this. Now, in this piece that I'm making today is really like a test part. It's not for an actual piece of furniture, but hopefully down the line, I do hope to make something that, could have a fancy draw front like this. And I want to try to create a basket weave pattern on that draw front. And that's what this video is going to be all about, is whether or not I can make it. As long as I can stay out of trouble. Oh, if I could only stay out of trouble. That's what you're probably wondering. What do I mean by that? Well, I went to go start the machine, and the machine has a initialization process every single time you turn it on. And I didn't bother to turn on the camera because, this is boring stuff that you guys don't want to see. It's, just regular routine stuff. So I turn it on, and what ends up happening, the machine, part of the process is the gantry here will go all the way to the back of the machine, and there are limit switches at the back where it homes itself and finds out, that it's where it's at, and then it comes back forward to the front of the machine over here you can put a bit in, router bit, and it will locate the bit as it is. So what ended up happening is, I'll explain part of my custom setup that I have. It's a tight fit in here, and before, when I put this together, I had made notches in my posts, as you can see back there, because there are certain parts of this gantry that has to, the little bolts on the sides have to pass through, and it's such a tight fit that I had to open up, little notches on both sides. And this guy forgot to fasten the build table to the floor. Also, didn't think that it would be necessary to fasten the machine to the floor because it weighs about 200 pounds, and I never thought that it would move. Well, let me explain what happened. The other day, I had a piece of furniture get picked up by movers, and it was sitting on my build table waiting for them to pick it up. It was a very large table. And unbeknownst to me, they moved my build table, and I didn't know it. And that little gap that I had there was now gone. And when I went to go start up the machine, and it went to go initialize itself and go to the back, it hit the leg in the back corner, and the gantry then went askew, where that side got stuck and wouldn't go, and that other side kept going. So the gantry was crooked by about 2 to 3 inches out of square, and I panicked. Luckily, I was at the front of the machine where the emergency stop button is, and I hit the stop button, immediately, and then just started freaking out. It's like, oh my God, I think I broke the machine, because it was totally crooked. So I then moved the table out of the way, figured out what had happened, and said, all right, let me try to let it continue initializing itself. And I'll take you to the back. And what ended up happening, I let it initialize again, and man, I got lucky. So what ended up happening was the machine then hits its limit switches, which are back here at the back of the machine. And this side hit the limit switch first because it was in its correct position. But this side, which was the one that got bound on the leg, was off. So luckily, all it did was that it waited for this side to catch up, and it let it continue, and it brought itself back into square once it hit the limit switch. And I think everything is fine. I haven't run it since. I just let it move forward. And I've also gone ahead really quickly, and I have since fastened stop blocks, as you can see there, right there in the corner, on each side to locate the machine so that it cannot move. I've done that front and back, and I've also put stop blocks on the sides as well. So you can see them in the front here. And it just basically keeps the machine from being able to be moved at all. I've also gone ahead and now smartly I've fastened the legs of the bench to the floor all around, all 4 legs, and so the table cannot be moved. Don't ask why I didn't do that before. I have no clue. That one got by me. But fingers crossed, nothing happened to the machine. Like I said, it looks like it's okay. I haven't run anything at all. I'm setting up right now for this part to try to run it today, and we'll see what happens. Fingers crossed. So this is an open type weave that I was testing out, and this is right off of the machine. And I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed with the way it got machined. There's really no like touch-up work needed, not much at all. I mean, you can't even see any lines, from the overlap. It's like glass smooth. I'm really impressed. Now I know this is just MDF, it's a little furry in the middle there. Again, this is just test material. But I gotta say, I'm really impressed. I thought that I was gonna have to do, maybe a lot more finish work or something like that. But no. Again, very impressed the way it came out. The detail looks pretty cool. Next up, I'm gonna do the same weave, just tight, so there won't be the little squares in between. The lace will be touching each other, so it'll be a tight weave. So let me show you that one. So this is how it came off of the machine, and I will say I was having a little bit of trouble with the machine being able to zero in on the surface and the machine was not, again, locating the surface. So it was thinking that it was like 1/4 of an inch below the actual surface. So I just did it manually and zeroed it in on the corner and the top, again, just manually, and it worked out fine. But so looking at this one this is the tighter weave. I want to go into the software, change things up to try to make the webbing a little more prominent, so making it a little thicker and higher and lower, so to speak, so that you really see the definition in it. I can control that in the software as well. And I'm also going to make them the webbing much larger. These are only 1/2 inch, and I was, again, just using this as a test. So I'm going to try to go in and make them like 2 inches wide, and for like a door or something, a cabinet door or something like that. So we get to see more of the detail. So I'm going to go into the software and do that. And I also thought that I should show you what bits I've been using for these. They're basically all the same for all of them. So I'm using, for the roughing out, I'm using a 1/4 inch roughing end mill. And then for all the finish work, I'm using a 1/8 inch round end mill. So that's the bits that I've been using, and they're all the same for all the processes. So, all right, so let me go back into the software, whip up a new program, and come out, and we'll see what the new style of weave is going to look like. Okay, so this is the next design that I wanted to attempt. This one's a little larger than the last ones I had just done. It's 18 inches long, and it is 12 inches deep. It's same thing, 1 inch thick. And the weave this time, though, these pieces are about 2 inches wide. And, they're fairly tight. I left this little feature, little squares in between, just to give it a little more depth. They're about 1/8 of an inch thick and more pronounced. I made them stand out a little more so that, just it had more detail to it and wasn't as subtle, as the other one. And this one I did to replicate like a cabinet door, that you might have on a console or something like that. And I just thought it was really cool and, stands out a little more than the others that I had done. And to all my CNC enthusiasts, after I show the machining of this part, which will be at the very end of the video, I will go in detail on the computer how I designed this project. So I'll do a step-by-step in Vectric on how I created, this design from beginning to end. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned to the end, and I will go in depth with that. But for now, let's get to the machine and see how it came out. Okay, so I'd say this one was a success. I really like how this one came out. How detailed the pattern is, how prominent it is, everything turned out just the way I wanted it. I did, however, find out that there's a little bit of a, not a flaw, but I'm gonna need a vacuum table to hold this down. I'm one of those, I don't know if it's just a small mat or a vacuum table itself, but so I got some lines. I'm gonna try and see if the camera can pick it up. Halfway through the video, I picked up on it because there was a line going through the middle, because the piece was actually going up and down, a few thousandths of an inch, but it creates lines in the piece. And it's because I can't put a clamp, on the surface pressing down on it, to keep it from lifting up, because I'm milling the entire surface. So there's no room to do that. I would obviously run into the clamp. And this is a perfect example of where a vacuum table would come in handy. And I'm going to look into getting a smaller size one, maybe if they make one that's like a, not necessarily a table itself, but like a mat, or something that I can put underneath that will, be the new clamping system for this type of project, let's call it. So yeah, pretty cool. If you're unfamiliar with my new CNC journey, you may want to consider watching these videos and bringing yourself up to speed as to where I'm at in this new endeavor of mine in the world of CNC. If you like my content, please consider hitting the subscribe button. And for those of you that maybe aren't into the CNC world, you're not familiar with it, this video might end here for you. But for the rest of my CNC enthusiasts, and if you use Vectric Aspire or any other subscription to Vectric, you may want to continue watching the rest of this video, as now I will start to show you how I designed it in Vectric. Okay, everyone. So for those of you who stuck around to see how I designed this on software, again, I use Vectric Aspire, and if you're using, I'm not quite sure on all of the levels in Vectric, but I'm pretty sure that I think it's VCarve. You can also do it, VCarve Pro. There are certain features that, come with different memberships. So you'll have to check and see what you have on yours, if all the tools are available to you. But I'm going to go ahead and show you how I do it. And I'm going to start creating a new file. And I've already, it's already preset for what I was just doing. And for this demonstration, I'm doing, a board that is 18 inches by 12 inches, and it's 1 inch thick. It's MDF, just what I happen to be using for the test. And so this is all good for this. I'll go ahead and click OK. Okay, so now what we've got to do is create a rectangle on the perimeter of the piece. So I'm going to go ahead up here and I'm going to draw a rectangle. And for this one, again, same thing. It's going to be 18 by 12. Pretty simple, straightforward. And it's going to create it. I'm going to zoom back out. I can auto center it, but I just like to play with it like this. Okay, so now that we've got it like that, and you've created a border around the whole piece, we now need to create a dimension, where it's 1 inch thick. So I'm going to select the whole piece and then go over to here, and I'm going to create a flat shape component. And in that, on the base height here, I'm going to go ahead and put in 1 inch, because that's what we want. We want it 1 inch thick, and it's going to create it. Just wait for it. There it goes. Okay, so now I'll go into the 3D view, and you can see that we've created our board, which is 18 inches by 12, 1 inch thick. All right. So now from there, I need to create the grid pattern for the weave. And what I like to do in this case is I like to give for this particular example, and this is just the way I'm doing this project. I'm putting a frame, 1 inch frame around the entire perimeter. You don't have to do that. I just kind of like to do it, so that's what this one will be. And you can also change it as well as the layout to the weave, sorry. You can put the weave on a 45. You can leave it straight up and down, which is what I'm doing for this one. But I'll get into that later as well. And so for giving myself a guideline, I'm going to create another rectangle, which will now be 16 by 10, and that will give me the frame that I'm looking for this particular piece. All right, so that's there. Again, I'll zoom out, grab it, and I will position it again. There it goes. And that just gives me a pretty cool, guideline when I'm doing my grid. Now, I also found out that, and this is where it gets a little tricky when you're doing your grid. It's just not too sure how many people would have experience with like flooring or tiles and stuff, but it's kind of the same thing. You want an equal amount, going across so in other words, up and down, left to right, you want whatever pieces are on the edges to be equal from the left side to the right side, top and bottom, so it looks nice. And my grid for what I'm doing, the grid will be 2 inches apart, the lines. And I know from doing it before that I also need my first line to be 1 inch from 1 inch from this line. That's where the first one's going to start. It'll be 1 inch here, and it'll be 1 inch here, and same thing on the bottom. It'll be 1 inch here and 1 inch here, and then that will give me a nice balanced piece here. So let me go ahead and show you how I put in the grid, and we're going to click on draw a straight line. And there's no angle or anything on this one, so I don't have to do that. But so I come down and just go 1 inch in, click there, come back over, and on the matching side, click it, hit finish, and bang, you got, an easy line. And I'm gonna also do the same thing. Now, actually, no, I'm gonna go down to the bottom and I'll put my first line in on the bottom here, just so I know where I'm ending. Okay. And now I can continue going in and just putting in the rest of the lines that are now 2 inches apart. And it's just pretty straightforward stuff here. And like I said, you can do this on an angle and on a 45 if you wanted to as well. It gets a little trickier when you're trying to do that because to get them even, it's a little bit harder. So just something to think about. But it's all possible. So now I'm going to create my vertical lines here. It's really pretty simple and again, depending on how big you want your weave to be, that's how you would make your grid. And also later on, I'll show you when I'm doing the weave itself, you can change the dimensions of your like weave straps, how we should call them. There's a lot of variation that you can play around with. Okay. Okay. So that's my grid, and it's pretty well balanced. From here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to close that out. And now, depending on what you have with your subscription, I'm just going to lock this line in. Okay. I'm going to go to clip art, and in clip art, click on that. I go all the way down to weaves, and then all the way down at the bottom in the weaves. Where is it? Okay, on this one, you're going to click it, drag it over onto the screen, and say yes to this because we want the invisible layers. The most important thing are these three little shapes right there in the center. You can get rid of this again. And I'm going to zoom back out. I'm going to highlight this just so I can move it. Okay. And then from there, I'm going to click on these little, these are cross sections, and they're exactly what I'm looking for. Because these are what dictate what our weave is gonna, it's gonna look like. So that is the most important part. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change the size of them per my design, what I'm looking for. And through some trial and error, I figured out what size I wanted them to be. So so I'm going to click on it, and then I'm going to go over to here and set selected object size, open that up. And here I'm going to unlink them. And I know from what I did that I like mine to be, I like it to be 1.8 inches. And I like the height of them to be 0.125 or 1/8 of an inch. And yes, and then just click apply and see it automatically changes the size of the cross section of that piece. Then I'm going to click on the other one. I don't use, I play around with them because I like different shapes, but I know specifically which one I want. I'm just going to, for purposes of showing you guys, I'm going to do it this way. Cool. Okay, so now we have our cross sections, and the next thing you're going to want to do is this frame that we put around the edge. We're going to want to get rid of that. Otherwise, when I go to make the weave, it's going to make a weave on that as well, and we don't want that. We just want the frame itself. So now, what we do is we go in and we highlight this entire grid area like that. On the modeling tools, we go over to the extruding feature, click on that. Because we have already selected this here, we're going to say use selection, and it automatically puts in here now all of the directions for the weave. So that's already done. Then you simply click on which one of the cross sections that you want to use, which is the, whatever shape it is that you want. And I particularly like this one. So I'm going to click on it. And then before I click actually, I'll click apply and then, because it takes a little while to do it. Um, what I want to show you right now is this part here where it says weave under and over. And this is where you can influence how prominent your weave is from the surface of the piece. And this is just something you can play around with. I believe its default setting is 70% here and 130 on this one. And it just wasn't enough for me. I wanted it a little more pronounced. So I went to 20% and 180, and it just made the weave thicker and it made it stand out more. So I just particularly like that better. So we've already hit apply, and this should be good to go. What I will show you now is the 3D view, and you can see that we have our weave. Our weave has already been done, right? The only problem is it's sticking up above the surface, right? So now what I do is I create a recess for it, and I push it down, so to speak, into the surface, maybe like a little less than 1/4 of an inch. And that gives me that look, that I want. So let me show you how I go about doing that. So now what I'm going to do again, now I'm going to draw that rectangle again, now that we've already done the weave, so that's out of the way. So we want to create that same rectangle, okay? And actually, I'm going to go in, hold on a second, I'm going to get rid of this particular one. I forgot that yesterday, when I had done this, for whatever reason, this particular design needed to be ever so slightly larger. I was getting little like pieces, I don't know why, that were popping up that were paper thin, and I needed to go a little bit thicker just to cover it. So I'm going to try these settings. I forgot exactly what they were right now, but I think that's pretty close. Um, I'll be able to show you once I create it. Oops. There we go. Now I'm just going to get rid of this guy. Okay. So now that we've done that, let me zoom back in here. And I'm going to highlight this. And this is where we're going to create another plane. And I'm going to go in. And for this one, I want the base height to be, I think I did it at 0.260, because if I'm correct, the weave itself is about 0.24, I believe, thick. So this will give me, enough clearance from the top. But I'm going to show you something else here real quick. Just, this isn't the right setting right here. I'm going to show you why. So when you look at it, right, now I'm raised way up above. But when you click this button to subtract it from the previous components, here it goes, just let it do its thing. So there you have it. This was how I designed this piece. Again, pretty simple, straightforward. You can change all kinds of things. You can make, like I wanted these little spaces in here, little squares. So all of that stuff can be changed if you change the size of the webbing here. If you change the overlap, the weave, the over under, all of those kind of things will affect the way that the weave looks. And this was something that I was looking for. So I hope this helps you out. And as far as machining it is concerned, the tool paths, it's pretty simple. I just went in and did a 3D roughing pass on mine. Again, all of the settings here, I didn't touch them. I did the model boundary. I used the 1/4 inch end mill. And again, depending on your machine, the type that you have. For the roughing strategy, I did it in Z level first. And, when I did that, I'm not going to go about creating another tool path. I already done this, but that's what I used was the 1/4 inch end mill. And then I went ahead and made a separate finish machining tool path. I used the 1/8 inch ball nose. And again, same thing. However, on this one, instead of using the offset, which would take 10 years to do, I clicked and I did roster. It's much faster and it just goes back and forth. And I used on mine, depending on how much handwork you want to do afterward, because these settings will affect the finish on the piece. A second, I'm going to let it calculate this real quick. I won't use it, but then here's what I want to show you. So my step over, this is where the detail comes in. This one is at 0.0125, and it will give you incredible detail. You won't really see any lines at all on the surface. It will, however, it's going to cost you a lot of time to make the piece because it's making many, 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 many passes back and forth. And so if you increase this, you will cut the piece faster. However, you're going to start seeing lines eventually because your step over is now getting coarser, and you're going to start to see more of the each time the bit steps over itself. So that's something to keep in mind. I go for the utmost quality in everything that I do. So time's not a factor, and I like to keep it, at the finest setting that I can. Again, without taking 11 hours, but again, just to show you how that goes, and that's pretty much it. Everything else from here is pretty straightforward for all of your other pieces as to your machine and how you create your tool paths and so on and so forth. But I just wanted to show you how I go about doing it, and yeah, it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. A lot of variables in it that you can change and make it your own. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you on the next video.